Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever you're watching or listening to the show. And we are honored to have my friend Tom Olson from Good Success join us this morning from Maryville, Indiana. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Good to have you.
Good to be seen. It's a nice day up here in Northwest Indiana. I'm actually right outside Chicago, so Maryville, Indiana. My office is actually in Gary, Indiana, so just inside the city limits in Calumet Township, and it's a brisk morning up here. We were at 37 degrees or something like that overnight, so I kind of like this weather though, so it's good.
So do I, man. I like it when it gets a little chillier. The bear isn't as hot.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
So you, for those that don't know, Tom actually just won an amazing award not too long from Think Realty Magazine as the Real Estate Investor of the Year, correct?
I did. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, here we go. It's actually in my office here. So this is what it looks like right here. Single Family Investor of the Year. So I'm very honored and humbled for that somebody else would think that's probably the guys in my mastermind voting for me. So, I mean, you know how that goes. When people know who you are, then you get voted for. So I appreciate that. I really do believe in the Think Realty platform. They do have a lot of stuff going on, and they are going to be the voice for real estate investors. And I do appreciate and like them a lot.
They do. Totally agree with that. Right over there. And I just heard that Carol has stepped down as editor-in-chief to go on with her and Brian because their real estate company's booming on the land in that neck of the woods. So good kudos to her and everything over there. But let's talk more about you, the man, the myth, the legend out here. Tom and I have known each other for a while. We were both members. I don't know if you still are or not, both members of the Collective Genius Mastermind a while back. That's how I think we initially met. You run an amazing mastermind as well. You want to talk a little bit about your mastermind, but actually before we dive in it, talk a little about yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about who Tom Olson, the man, is.
So, oh gosh, I mean, how much time you got? This is like one of those this is like story time here. So I don't know. I'll just go with what I am or what we're doing today. So today I own several different companies. One's called Olson Group, which we buy and sell real estate. So we buy houses, we fix them up, we rent them, we buy, fix them up, and sell them retail. We wholesale a little bit. We don't wholesale a lot. And then we also do a program called Active Turnkey. So that's when people want to buy houses cash from us as a wholesaler. And then I also, after the buy and sell company, I have a construction management company. Construction's kind of my background. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. Last year, we did about $5 million in renovation in that business for other investors. And now we're doing a lot more for ourselves, for Olson Group, but we also do a lot of work for other investors in the Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana area. And then I have a property management company called Olson Property Services. In addition to those three companies, I also have the Good Success Company, which is a real estate education company that talks about how to have the right kind of success. That's what we preach and teach. It's all about why you do what you do and making sure that you're doing the right thing for the right reason. And at the end of the day, you know, it's just like when everybody asks me, how do you have 115 people on your lenders list? You know, I got people that want to lend me money all the time. I have more people that want to lend me money than I can actually take their money. And they ask me, how do you build that? I'm like, just pay people back. You just do the right thing over and over and over again. And you just get to the point where people start seeking you out instead of you trying to seek out people to loan you money. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. The Good Success Mastermind, yes, it's for elite entrepreneurs, and that's really a blessing to me. We're actually having our next event coming up here in November 7th, 8th, and 9th in Miami, because nobody wants to be in Chicago in November. So we're going to the warm state of California, Florida, be in Miami, and it's a great time to be able to network with people like yourself and people of status that have been doing this for enough. I'm like the guy. I'm not really good at like getting people off their butts to like start. That's you. I think you're like really good at that, Scott. Like you could just like motivate people to get that first deal done. Like I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that really takes people once they've gotten off their butt and once they've started something. I can get people from the 5-yard line, maybe down to the 50 or 75-yard line much better than I can kind of get people to get started. And that's kind of what that mastermind's for. People that are already doing it and people that are already have some success, but they're trying to figure out how to scale, how to work in their, because when you get to this point in your business, it's like, you got to become a business. You can't just like be that solar entrepreneur, that person that's doing everything. You got to figure out how to work business, how to have HR, how to hire properly, how to fire properly. And I think that obviously everybody has their own challenge, whether it's like trying to find private money. Some people have too much money. They don't know where to put it. So some of those people are in my mastermind. I got people that are, can offer support and actually help and set, like Gary Harper's in our mastermind, that can help set up people with EOS or with a system for their business. And we do, and we have a good time. It's an encouraging week, and we can really help encourage each other. We can support each other, but also challenge people to set those goals high and hit them, and then hold each other accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good time.
Very, very good stuff out there, man. And we spent some time visiting a little bit on the FFN cruise. God, it's hard to believe it's been 10 months since the cruise, right? Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, that was the Financial Friends Network. And they're actually doing another cruise to Cuba in May that I'll be on and speaking on. But that's another great network I'd love for people to plug into.
Exactly. I will be in Europe on that. Otherwise, I'd be in Viva La Cuba as well.
Well, it's funny. They're like I've got guys coming. They're actually going to Portugal in November as well. So I'm not going on that one, but they go all over the place. Walter and Quincy do a great job with that Financial Friends Network.
Yeah, it must be nice that when they get their age, they just take a cruise every quarter.
Yeah, that's true.
Basically,
Walter's Quincy's not that old. Walter's quite a bit older than Quincy, and I don't think people realize that. But Walter's I think he's in his mid to late 50s, and Quincy's in his mid to late 50s, but I think Walter's in his late 60s. So
yeah, definitely. But anyway,
they're great guys.
Exactly. So let's talk a little about that, because I love what you're doing with your podcast. I love what you're doing in the mastermind. We run our mastermind as well here. And it's my favorite weeks of the year when I get to hang with the people in our mastermind. I'm sure it's the same way with you, because you get a lot of energy out of everybody. It's great seeing what other people are doing and sharing everybody's journey along the way, and then also just nuggets just pour into it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to me, I think the biggest thing about the mastermind is to express to people and articulate that you have to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And the more vulnerable people are in the mastermind, the more powerful of a mastermind. I've been to masterminds where it was like guts are like spilled out in front of everybody, and you end up at the end of that like having such a better experience and going so much farther that next quarter because of all the vulnerability. And I've been at masterminds where it was kind of like, okay, I'm awesome, I was great, I did good, and I'm amazing, come see me, like whatever. And those masterminds have it. You don't get as much out of. You don't get as much encouragement. You don't get as much challenge. And you don't get to connect with the people and support them the way that you could if you're being vulnerable. So it's, to me, that's one of the most important things about a good mastermind, is to have awesome people in there that are going to tell you and be willing to tell you when you're wrong. But in order to be able to have them tell you that, you've got to be willing to be open up and ask for help. And to me, it's like, it's just what I say, be a conduit, not a bucket. You have to be humble enough to ask for help, but then you also have to be giving enough to, like, once you have the knowledge, to give that to the next person that is in your shoes that you were, 5 years ago. So it's the, your network is your net worth. Absolutely. But in my opinion, it's more importantly than being your net worth, it's also your survival plan. Mm-hmm. And, like we talk about 2008, what happens when that happens all over again? And it's going to be your network that keeps you steady and keeps you above flow. It's not just, and sometimes it's more about staying afloat. It's more about staying alive, in those times, than it is about anything else. It's just the people that stayed alive during 2008, like, look at where they're at now. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that are rocking it. The people that went down with 2008 because they didn't have the network are the people that I know people are still rebuilding from 2008, 10 years later. And it's because they didn't have that solid network of people to really, ride that wave.
I could not agree more with you on that, because it's all about, sometimes we all pivot, right? We all pivot. We get used to doing one thing and do it really well, getting in our groove. But then we have something like what happened 10 years ago, and we've got to adjust. You've got to make a 90-degree or 180-degree turn to figure out where you want to go. I'll be the first one to say I made a big pivot 10 years ago, and 8, 9, and 10 were not the greatest of years, but it built up to where I could capitalize in the last 8 to where I'm at today, and where a lot of our students are and people are out there doing, because they took advantage of what the market gave them. Now, as the market's risen back up, some of those opportunities have dried up. They've got to be a little bit more flexible and be able to change and tweak and dip, dodge, duck, and dive. You know, if you're a dodgeball fan out there, and I see a lot of things starting to build up to another meltdown, another explosion in the mortgage industry like we saw back a decade ago. It may not be nearly as big, but there's still going to be a lot of opportunities changing versus this continued uphill climb we see in the market. I see we're going to take a dip, and who knows where to go from there. But you've got to be flexible, and when you have or surround yourself with great people, you often are able to find that pivot or be able to work with other individuals that are successful to kind of ride that wave together to avoid failure, you know?
Yeah, I think we're in a very unique period of time right now. I'm very opportunistic. I really am. I believe that there are still markets out there that you should be looking at, that you should be investing in. But I also believe there's markets, if me personally, I would just stay out of. This next market correction, I think, is going to be different. So I think everybody's expecting 2008 to happen all over again. It's not going to happen that way. Have you been tracking the, I'm sure you have, if you're in notes. I mean, have you been tracking the foreclosure rates as they have been starting to rise already? They're already kind of, people that are late on their payments are already back up to 3%. They're already kind of like starting. It was really unnatural to be at like 1% if you look at a long period of time, but now they're kind of creeping back up. And we're even seeing them. We're starting to see even inventory back into the sheriff's sales. So if you're in notes like that, you should know that that's an opportunity for you to be like looking at. I'm not saying necessarily be salivating, but like it's already happening to a degree. Like that market turn is already happening, but it's going to turn in different ways than it did in 2008. And I think it's going to be a lot more localized. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to have markets like Dallas that may continue to just kind of do its thing. There's just too much population. When you have 2,000 people a week moving to Dallas, I don't see the prices dropping. You can't have that. But you see other areas of the country that like may have the opposite effect because of different factors. So I think you got to be very local in your mindset of what you're doing. And I think it's going to be better to be more centrally located in building the communities. I think is going to be way more important in the next 10 years than it was in the previous 50 years.
I totally agree to that.
Better to be more centrally located in building the communities. I think is going to be way more important in the next 10 years than it was in the previous 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree to that. Better to be more centrally
located. Hang on here.
Yep. I'm repeating myself, and I didn't do it.
Well, I'm pulling up questions. People are saying, "Oh, I've been to Maryville. All right, it's a good thing on here, checking stuff out here."
Well, come see me. I love guests. We 2 or 3 people come through our office every. So it is a fun to be able to meet our investors.
So I just got a text from somebody saying, "Oh, Maryville, you made it sound like it was closer to Chicago versus being directly south of Gary, Indiana. You didn't shy away from your officers. Let's talk a little about Gary here real fast. Let's take a pivot here because I get people like, hey, Scott should be buying in Gary. And I'm like, yes. Well, you got to be very careful of Gary on a block by block basis. It's the only city that I've been to where I've been shot at twice.
Really?
Yes.
How long ago was that? I'd love to talk about that.
One was about 3 years ago, actually. 3
okay.
years ago was the second time, and then the first time was about 5 years ago as I was driving around the neck of the woods. So just that alone is something I will tell you that has taken a pivot in the last 5 years. So up until about 3 or 5 years ago, if you looked at like the top 10, top 100, top 50 dangerous places or dangerous communities, Gary was always in one of those lists. However, since 2015, we haven't even made the top 100 one time. So as far as that is concerned, I'd be much more scared to walk down some places of Houston or walk down some places of Dallas or South Chicago or Baltimore or Detroit or St. Louis. I mean, there's lots of more, and those are the cities that are coming up consistently in those top whatever dangerous places. I mean, I was just at Baltimore, and I'm downtown, blocks away from downtown. You're like, holy crap, I just go. Yeah. But Chicago's not that way. Chicago, you have to drive down, 5 or 6 miles before you kind of get to South Side, which is really where all 650 murders happen out of the 651 or whatever. The Chirac area, definitely.
Yeah. So, but to me, I'm very, very excited about Gary, Indiana. We have seen the list prices go up $9,000 in the last 9 months. Wow. And that's not a big deal for most places in the country. But when your average list price was $19,000, that's a big deal. We are buying houses all in at around $35,000, $40,000 right now that are renting for $750 a month And in the same neighborhoods, I'm seeing actual retail comps in the $60,000 range. And then in other areas like Tolleson and on the west side, we're seeing houses that not a single house has sold for over 40 grand in like 10 years since 2007. And now we're seeing, I mean, we have 4 or 5 comps in those 2 areas that I just said that are over 100. So it was like, it literally just jumped from 40 to 100. And then there's a comp for 115. So when you see that happen, like I've known this is going to happen. And at some point, everybody has to go somewhere. And I think because of the danger factor that's been taken away, and because it's not like it was 3 or 5 years ago, they've tore down probably 4,000 or 5,000 houses since in the last 3 or 4 years. And that's helped a lot. And really the help isn't really there for the people. So people are going back to Chicago. They're moving away that are kind of the crime ridden type places. I am very big on Gary. Gary expanded their airport. They actually have a longer runway now than Midway in Chicago.
Wow.
So their longest runway can now handle like the largest planes in the world. And there's major things happening on the airport for logistic companies. Like FedEx really should be here. UPS should be. There's like small hubs, but they're not like they're major hubs. We have I-65 that goes north and south all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, 8094 that goes east and west, coast to coast. We are right on Lake Michigan, which gives us waterways throughout the whole Great Lakes, plus gives us access to Mississippi River. And the one thing that people hate around here, but they're great for transportation, is trains. There are trains on half of blocks everywhere, up and down Gary and everywhere. So Gary also has some big things coming for it. The South Shore train is actually expanding. They're putting an extra, there's already one that goes right through Gary, and they're putting an extra track in. And the high-speed rail is coming right through Gary, which will go all the way to South Bend. I mean, to me, those are very big deals. I think it's either Bethlehem, it's Middle, Isoter Middle, big steel manufacturer, putting $750 million into a new part of their plant. 1,200 new jobs that the governor just announced probably about 2 months ago. And in addition to that, Indiana is the only state in the Midwest. You know, people should know this, but Indiana is the only state in the Midwest that people are moving to instead of moving away from. And then we're right next to the reddest state when it comes to people moving, not the reddest state politically, probably the bluest state in the union politically, Illinois, where people are just moving away in droves because they can't handle the taxes that are getting placed on them. So with all that stuff happening, like we're getting car manufacturers, we're getting everything. We really like we're benefiting from all these other states having issues. But if you look at the Midwest, like Indiana is the only state that there is positive growth in population. So all those things to me, like I'm very big on Gary, Indiana. I one of my dreams, which you probably know, is to flip the entire city of Gary. I am bringing nonprofits here. I am bringing business here, right? I'm going to go next week talking about buying a 6-story building in the downtown portion of Fifth Avenue and Broadway. It'll be like a centerpiece of the whole entire city, really, and making that into commercial space on the main level. And then the top levels will be residential. And I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it's just something that we're looking into. But we have flipped probably about 12 houses in Calumet Township, which is where my office is. And we've raised the values in those 10 houses from about $85,000 to $140,000 in the last 18 months.
Wow.
And yes, I mean, people might look at me and say, you've made a bunch of money in that. But I'm like, to me, it's more important to the community what I'm doing. I actually had a cash offer on a property at 140, and I would have made the same money as a 150 offer that I end up later accepting with a conventional, with them asking for all their stuff. And I took the 150 offer just to have the better comp, even though I'd make probably more money taking the lesser offer with them asking for more concessions. And I did it for the one purpose of helping the community. I mean, if you think about it, if I can raise the value of the whole community $5,000 and there's 100 houses, I just gave that community a $500,000 gift.
Yep.
And that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on how I can make a positive impact on the community and how can people understand that we're trying to help them, not just make money.
And that's such a wonderful thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. And we see that on the debt side of things. We're buying debt. I'm like, listen, a foreclosure is going to be death to that neighborhood for a while. Do whatever you can to keep it re-performing or get it modified. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made early on a decade ago, getting the note business. Like, I want to take everything back. I wanted to foreclose on everything because I wanted to own the real estate coming from the fix and flip side. And I left a lot of money on the table, not modifying the paper and keeping people in their property. Well, that's now obviously switched. I'm like, man, wait a second. It makes more sense to keep them in the property, to get them reinstated, to work some sort of modification to keep the values up. So it helps everybody versus it dropping down. And you see that happening in other areas of the country where foreclosure increasing. Like Florida's got the hurricane effect taking place, right? Texas here is second in the country in foreclosure rates as well right now because of all the hurricanes that hit, the flooding that goes on there. But we're seeing increases in foreclosures in Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana along the Gulf Coast there, and it's just like it's so frustrating as an investor to come in, buy something in an area, working to get it up, only to have your values get knocked down because of stuff that's going on around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have, I always make the running joke that we as entrepreneurs, real estate entrepreneurs, are who are really going to make America great again. It's not going to be politicians.
You got that right.
It's going to be like guys like you and me and others out there, but the folks that are watching out there that are really going to take and are going to help keep America where it's at. It's going to help build it up and just taking the opportunities in areas like Gary or Hammond or Columbus or Fort Wayne or other areas around Indiana, because I love Indiana. Absolutely love it. I think it's got some great markets just besides the big city of Indy, you know.
Yep.
It's a really great state, salt of the earth people for the most part, that are just great stuff there. You got bigger companies there that most people don't realize that are there. And I agree. I'm pretty excited what's going on in the state there, and I'm glad to hear about what's going on in Gary. That's good stuff. Good education this morning, Tom.
Well, I will tell you, if anybody needs boots on the ground or wants help, like I will offer that to your entire audience for anything in Lake or Porter County, really. Like the whole county's up here by Chicago. So yeah, Hammond and Gary are just kind of like a snapshot. You also have East Chicago, which I think is really on the uptick. You've got amazing mayor in East Chicago right now that is really helping turn things around. They have the Klein Avenue Bridge that is going to benefit the city of East Chicago amazingly. I really honestly wish the mayor of Gary really screwed the pooch on that whole deal. Like they had an opportunity to be a part of that deal and they snubbed their nose at business. Stupidest thing a politician could ever do. And what happens? East Chicago gets all the benefit from that from a financial standpoint. They're going to get 10 cents for every single car that passes over that bridge goes to East Chicago. So that's going to be a very big long-term positive thing for the city of East Chicago. But then, and that's just the north side. So the south side of the county, we've got Munster, which is best schools in the state. Valparaiso's in a great place to live. Crown Point is always in the best, 5 or 7 schools in the state. Like we've got really good neighborhoods here. Like you said, salt of the earth people as well. And if any of your audience gets notes in this area and wants to get a hold of me, I would love to offer that as a resource to you. I've got great property management and great acquisitions. If you're looking to sell, I'm an outlet for that as well. So anything I can do to help you guys, I'd love to be able to help.
It's totally a win-win, brother. I guarantee you. Careful what you ask for. You may just get it.
No, I love it. I really do. I love working with note people. I'm actually creating a lending company as well. So that's kind of like something in my 2019 initiative to actually have a hard money lending company. So I'm definitely trying to make sure I dot all my I's and cross all my T's when it comes to the notes. And I'm sure that some of your students are in the lending side as well. I think it's a really good place to be able to park some money that is, to me, it's all about the people though that you're dealing with. So if you're going to be a lender, just make sure you vet that person. And at the end of the day, make sure that if something goes south, like that's a person that you're going to want to be in the saddle with to do some kind of workout or whatever with down the road, that you trust that person.
Exactly. Let's talk about, you've got some great stuff going. What's been the biggest hurdle that's happened in your business? What's been the biggest, let's take it back a little bit, because I know it's been mine, but what's been the biggest hurdle that's happened to you in your good success?
Well, so I had
off guard there, didn't I?
Well, yeah, a little bit, but I know what it is. So it's not hard. It's just kind of a little hard to articulate on the spot, but, I had a partner about a year and a half ago and we disbanded ways. And I with all of my like experience, kind of thought that I could just completely, move everything what I was doing with a partner to doing it all myself. And I did. So like I already had this construction company. I already had a small rental portfolio. I already had other stuff going. But so I added to that a brand new property management company, which I used to be a property manager like 10 years ago. I was managing 40 units on the side with a full-time job. Like I knew the business. I just didn't want to have it until I started realizing if I'm going to sell turnkeys, I want to make sure I'm in control of that relationship with that investor, down the road. So I started a property management company, started this buy and sell company. And really, so I've got 4 main companies that I'm running in addition to my portfolio in my other LLC that runs all my rentals. And then trying to deploy my IRA, which is a whole nother like business almost in itself, right? I mean, you're like, gosh, I have like a whole business inside in my IRA. But anyway, so to me, the biggest hurdle has been patience and having the belief that it's going to work out, because it's kind of like we had this huge machine going. I mean, me and Wayne we sold 300 houses in 1 year. So we go from that and I'm like, okay, I want to do 100 houses this year. And we're probably on track right now for about 80. And to just kind of like go back to zero almost, and then have to wait for it to kind of start clicking again is kind of been my biggest hurdle. It's always right here, right? I mean, it's always right. It's always in your head. It's always that belief that it's going to work. And when you kind of see things, you're like, oh crap, I lost 30 grand this month. And then you're like, okay, but the next month went really well. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of that, it's that little bit of that roller coaster that you have to kind of just believe that it's going to work and know, and just keep pivoting. It's not like these aren't just one pivot type deals. It's like, you got to pivot sometimes. Like, it's like when you're a running back, I got to see a running back in the background there. It's like, they got to keep pivoting. They can't just, go straight forward and expect to get to the end zone. And that's kind of been probably the hardest thing for me that I've experienced, at least lately, for sure.
Well, and that's the thing. Wayne's a great guy.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was mutual going different ways. I heard about that. I thought you were going to talk about something else, but that's great. Love it. But that's the thing is, I think a lot of people get into businesses or partnerships initially, and one of the biggest mistakes I made, I brought a partner on earlier on who didn't pull the weight like I was doing, or didn't have the same mentality. He was going in a different direction than I was. We had to split. I had another partner. I didn't learn from that first mistake. I brought another partner on a few years later. Total nightmare. You think it's going to match up, doesn't match up. But that's the thing is, you're driven. You've got a goal. You've got a mindset, and working out the details from what you see. Because I think you're very a forward thinker, and trying to work to communicate that back to your team. Yep. Or your new staff to help you kind of, okay, here's where I see it. Now I got to deconstruct that to where we're at today to build it. And I know you're a big, huge fan of Traction, right? Mm-hmm. Great book, EOS operating systems. Oh, you probably got a copy right there if I know you, Tom.
Over in my bookcase, yes, I do.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, but that's the thing is surrounding I think a lot of people rely on partners to fill in a weakness when, hey, there's a lot of times you can hire staff or hire vendors to help out that way, where you keep a sole focus or sole direction, right?
No, absolutely. And actually, like, part of that whole thing has been like, it's more about making me better, like, so many times we go through life and we think, like, if you're a Christian, like I am, like, I pray, God, please change my circumstance. God, please make this happen. Like people that went through the hurricanes are probably thinking, God, why does this have to happen to me? Like it's like over and over. Sometimes it's just a barrage. It just hits you like day after day after day. And you're like, what in the world is going on? Can you please change these circumstances, change these things in my life? And at the end, what it is God just trying to change you. And he's trying to make you better so that you can handle those things. Because I think that all that means, my wife always tells me, God just he has something way bigger for you down the road, that he's making you go through this. And I'll tell you something I learned through this. And I'm glad you mentioned Traction. And I really am a big proponent of the EOS system and everything that they kind of talk about in business. However, I think there's a couple missing factors. And I feel like I've kind of come across by just like, I mean, I'm one of those people, I'm going to read at least a book a week. And I'm going to just dive in and learn as much as I can. I came across a book called Scrum, SCRUM, It talks about how to get done twice as much in half the time or something. And to me, I felt like that was a missing piece in our business. So we had the great structure, we had the meetings, we had everything, but we weren't really letting our teams be autonomous, and we weren't making them hold themselves accountable. It was like, when the boss has to hold everybody accountable, it's no fun anymore. But when everybody inside the business holds everybody accountable, and they have a daily quick meeting and they're the ones doing the meeting, not me, not the level, the team level management, not even their boss. It's the actual team that's actually on the ground, doing the construction, on the ground, acquiring houses, on the ground, selling houses. If they're having their daily meetings and they're asking, hey, what'd you get done yesterday? What are you going to do today? What do you need help with? How can I help you? It's very simple. It's how you start every small business is really how Scrum is kind of created. And to me, we're in the process of implementing that company-wide, but we've implemented a lot of that Scrum daily meetings, daily small huddles. It's not like a huddle with the whole company. And it's not like you're not asking all these extra questions. It's just about the work. It's just, what do you need to get done today? How can I help you? And then it's the whole team, looking on the board and saying, oh, you didn't get that done yesterday. Why didn't you get it done? It's almost like peer pressure, positively peer pressure, so it's a very good thing. And I think that was something that we were missing in our business. And I can definitely tell you, if you haven't read that book, that's probably my top book of this year that I've been involved with. I've read it 6 times, because I'm just to me, that was a missing piece in our business.
Yeah, it's a great book. I read it not too long ago. Totally agree with that. Now, I want to bring it back here a little bit. You've got the picture of the tree over your right shoulder there. Talk a little bit about that, because I think it was such a great nugget that we were talking about before we hit record, before we went live about that. And I think it's a very valuable piece. It kind of ties in a little bit what you were just talking a few minutes ago with you and your wife. But I think a lot of people need to hear that. You want to bring it back, bring up the verse, or talk about it.
Absolutely. So in my old office, I'm planning on still doing this here. So it used to say, underneath it says, and he shall be like a tree. And I think the tree for me represents something very, very powerful. Number one, we talked about the mastermind already, and how you have to be vulnerable. Well, the first thing about a tree is that a seed has to go into the earth. So you have to be humble. You have to go into the earth. And not only does it have to go into the earth, it has to crack open. A seed has to crack open in order to ever sprout, in order to ever do anything. And so that's the first part of the tree story, is you have to be humble enough to go deep. And all the stuff that's underground sometimes is way bigger than what's above ground. And then once a tree sprouts, it doesn't really give shade to people right away. It takes years and years and years and years. And a lot of times we want things now. We're so focused on ourselves. We've got our iPods, we've got our iPads, we've got our iTunes, we have our iPhone. Everything's about I. It's all about me. And it's not really about our purpose and our purpose-driven life that way I think we all should have. And to me, the tree and if you read that verse, it says that he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of waters that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. And to me, it's like being in that. The tree is just like my story about being a conduit, not a bucket. You've got to soak up a tree planted by the rivers of water. You're soaking up that water every day. Nobody even sees that you're soaking it up, because you're planted. It's your roots that are soaking it all up. But then you're that shade that can be the shade for whoever you can be a shade for, just like being a conduit. Every day I'm trying to plug into somebody that can encourage me, that can teach me, that I can serve, that I can be a servant to, that I can make money to my investors, for instance. And then I want to go find a community to be able to serve and be able to give that knowledge to, just like you're doing with your podcast. Every day you've got people on here that are trying to help people. You're trying to share your knowledge and share your network with everybody. You're not just trying to say, oh, what can I keep for Scott Carson? It's how can I help everybody with all the network that God's given me? And that's the same thing for the tree. In addition to that, it also kind of teaches that you have to be patient with it. So every day, I'm a very impatient person. I already told you that a little bit, but I want to shade everybody right now, and I have to sometimes just know it bringeth forth his fruit in his season. And sometimes it's not your season to shade everybody. Sometimes it's just your season to shade some people. And as you get larger and as you grow your network and as you grow your influence, you'll eventually be able to be like that tree planted by the rivers of water.
Love it, man. Love it. A lot of people like it online too. Loving it. Likes. Getting some good shade on social media.
Well, honestly, that is the prayer of Jabez is something I pray every single day. God, please bless me indeed, or bless me a lot, expand my influence, or expand my coast, keep me from evil and keep evil from me, and work behind the scenes and be in everything I do, whether it's working with my family, working with my kids, working with my investors, working in the community. I want that to be my life. And I really like our core focus in all of our businesses to glorify God, number one, but how we do that is by adding value to our communities, whether it's somebody I'm serving, whether it's you, Scott Carson, on this podcast, or whether it's the communities that we're building gardens in, or building. I'm a part of Veterans Path Up, trying to help veterans in Gary, get a hand up instead of a handout. And, all the initiatives that we're trying to do to help the community, that's how I'm trying to make sure that I'm glorifying God.
Man, you're doing a great job, Tom. I have to tell you that. Always admired you. Always appreciate what you provide and bring to the table. Because, guys, if you get a chance to check out everything he's doing on your podcast as well, Tom. Just phenomenal. It's very honored to have you on today. Also very honored to be on your podcast a couple of weeks ago too. And I think a lot of people have to realize that tree analogy, the tree verse, it's true. Fruit comes in his time. It doesn't come always in the time that we want. So you have to be patient with that. Realize that you're going to get blown by the wind a little bit and just got to go with it. But soak up as much information as you can. And like sometimes you just got to put down what you're focused on for everybody else to focus on you a little bit, absorb it, grow a little bit, and then be able to help everybody else. I think too many people get in trying to help everybody else out first. And they find themselves financially strapped out there versus, hey, just focus a bit on you and then go feed the world with what your cup runneth over, right?
Yep. It's a process. It really is. We talk about processes so much, but the process is work to have to give. And that's what the whole concept of being a conduit, not a bucket analogy is all about, So and some people have that process broken, the work to have process. Now, some people have the work to have all figured out, and they got to figure out how to have to give. And like you have this selfishness and this I attitude in this realm, but some people have the selfishness and I attitude and they don't have the work to have give, or they feel guilty because they're being blessed, or they feel guilty because they don't want to, have more for some reason. But if you have it for the right purpose, there will be no guilt.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Tom, what's the best way for people to find out more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. So you can definitely check us out on the podcast, Good Success Podcast. We're on every single podcast episode way you can find us. Find us on Facebook. I think you're going live right now. I'm not sure, but if you are, we do the exact same thing on ours. And you can, honestly, I don't mind giving out my phone number. And I know you have a lot of people that I believe that the more times you give out your phone number, the less people call you, except for telemarketers. If you're a telemarketer, do not call me. I don't know why people think they have the right to call me when they're a telemarketer. But if you have a note, if you have something in my area, or if you want to come see our office, if you want to come we have an amazing community go-giver event that is almost doesn't cost barely anything. It's like $500 for 3 days. And awesome. Definitely networking in June. CommunityGoGiver.com for that. GoodSuccess.com for our website. And if you want to get a hold of me, 219-742-7957 or T Olson, OLSOM at GoodSuccess.com is my personal email. And I would love to hear from you.
Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it, brother. We got to spend some more time together.
I would love it, Scott. Maybe where are you going? You're going to Europe next year?
Yeah, we take at least one cruise a year. So we're taking, actually, first time we're doing a transatlantic cruise. We're taking a 7-day cruise from, I think, Fort Lauderdale over to Barcelona. And then we have a 7-day Spanish cruise. And then we don't know where we're going from there. Either going to go to Venice or go back to Paris or London. We spent 3 weeks over in Europe last year.
Is this personally, or is this with your note people?
No. This is personally.
Okay, gotcha.
Just for fun. Cool. So we've got it. I've got a mastermind training the second weekend of December here, actually down in Cape Coral, Florida, the December 7th, 8th, and 9th.
I love Cape Coral.
People at and where it's nice and sunny, not so cold and brisk.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I'd definitely love to join you for one of those events. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll shoot you some information. Would love to have you, bud. All right.
Cool.
Thanks, Scott. Have a great day.
Likewise. You too. Have a good day.
All right, guys. Hey, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closers. As always, go out, take some action, be a giver. Go out and build your own forest, to throw some shade out there to help people accomplish some bigger things out there. But I think it's the biggest joy is I know when I see, I know it's what Tom's uses, when we can help people overcome obstacles to really grow leaps and bounds in their business and their lives to really help make America great again, one mortgage at a time. So go out, be something, and we'll see you all at the top, everybody. Bye.